The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to this very auspicious episode of the Chaser Report.
Charles, it's an extraordinary moment in the history of this podcast. We're about to circle in on an absolutely massive listener landmark, and you have organised a reward that I can't understand how you've done it, Charles.
I know. Well, a lot of people say that about a lot of things about me.
So we're about to close in on what's the landmark, the 7 millionth download in the history of the Chaser Report.
Yep, that's right. And it's not because we've made about 7 million episodes and we've got one listener.
It does feel like that some days.
Yeah. It's because people listen. People listen to this show.
I'm looking at the total here, Charles. 6,961,331 all-time downloads. A phenomenally large number, Charles. What can we possibly give the 7th millionth listener as a fitting reward for such a momentous landmark? I don't think there's a prize fitting. Last time, what was it? Some random merch from the Chaser shop. We've got to top it. We've got to do better than some random merch, Charles.
I have, Dom. I have topped it. I'm pleased to announce, and I'm not lying, we are giving away to one lucky listener $700 trillion.
700 trillion?
Yes.
How? What?
To celebrate our 7 millionth listener, we're giving away $700 trillion. That's how, you don't see Kyle and Jackie O doing that, do you?
Do you know how much money that is, Charles? How big's the economy of Australia? The economy of Australia wouldn't be more than $1 trillion, would it?
Yeah, it'd be like $1 or $2 trillion. Yeah.
Let me look at this. GDP of Australia, June 2021.
Yep.
$2 trillion. Charles, you're giving away 350 times more than that.
Yeah, that's a drop in the ocean compared to what we're giving away, $700 trillion. And all you've got to do is just write in and let us know why you think you're the 7 millionth downloader. Obviously, because podcasts don't, protect your privacy and everything like that, we can't actually tell exactly which downloader is the 7 millionth. But we can give it a fairly good crack, and we'll pick it on the same day that it crosses that threshold.
That the total goes off. Well, look, get out your email apps, podcast@chaser.com.au. I guess we're going to do it like we did for the 6 million, Charles. The most convincing claim to be the 7 millionth, the most worthy argument that you make will win. Are you sure about this? $700 trillion?
$700 trillion. And I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
You must be lying. More after this. Charles, is this the thing where you've done some sort of check that bounces? No. Didn't we do this before? Didn't we give away a check that was everyone knew was going to bounce before? Are you saying got this money?
I think it was post-dated. We gave away for our 6 million thing. I got printed a massive novelty oversized check. I've got the photo of the listener who got the
that's right.
got
he was
the
a
check
lovely
eventually,
guy.
and it was post-dated to the day after checks become invalid in Australia. You know how they announce checks are going to become invalid. So yeah,
that was a catch.
Yeah,
but you're saying this is
not
some
a
weird
catch.
Check bullshit.
You've
actually
pure
got the money.
Cash.
Charles, have you seen our budget recently? We barely have $700 to rub together on this project, and you're saying there's $700
That's probably because
trillion.
we spent all of it getting the prize money for this giveaway. Because when you have 7 million downloads, you have about $700 trillion to give away. That's how lucrative
that's what
it
Hamish
is.
and Andy do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I can't quite work out how you assure me.
Oh,
that
you
this is,
know. Don't insult the audience. You know. The audience knows as well.
that there's always a catch. I've known you long enough, Charles, to know that there is always a catch. $700 trillion. What's the total output of the global economy? That's what I want to know.
Way less than that. Yeah, it's probably like 30 or 40 million
economy.
trillion. Something.
Okay, this is good to know. So the total size of the world economy,
it's
about $100 trillion, Charles.
Oh, right. Okay.
$100 trillion. So you're saying 7 times the entire global economy is the prize.
Yes. That is what I'm saying. $700 trillion.
Okay.
You're
aware that when you make a promise like this, people can sue us if we don't give them $700 trillion.
Yeah, actually, I think we did remember we did that on Triple M.
There was a media training, wasn't there, that if you said we're giving you a car,
Yeah.
you got to give them a car.
You got to give them a car. Well, no, we're giving away $700 trillion. We actually did a promotion a little bit like this on Triple M years ago. We should actually dig out. What we'll do is we'll dig out that sketch and actually play it right here.
Nobody wants to listen to our show, so instead of improving the content, we're simply throwing cash at the problem. $1 trillion. That's enough to buy 1 billion iPhones.
I've always wanted a billion iPhones.
Over 3 times the size of the entire annual drug trade.
That's so big.
But it's not big enough. Big enough. So now we've decided to give away $100 trillion. We've timed it by 100. That's more money than has ever existed in human history.
I can't believe it. That's so much money.
Simply be the 100 trillionth caller through, and you could win the chance to go into the draw to win a chance to win $100 trillion every hour. On the hour. That's right, $100 trillion every hour.
I've won! Again!
All thanks to Radio Chaser, the home of the $100 trillion listener prize. Giveaway.
So that one had a whole lot of catches to it. This has no catches. I will send you, if you win, I will send you $700 trillion in cash.
In cash?
I've got it, yes. I've
Cold,
already lined it up.
hard cash.
Cold, hard cash, that's right.
As we used to say at Triple M. I do remember that sketch, and that was the one, yes, conditions apply.
Conditions apply.
You're saying no conditions apply. You've got the cash there in the
I've got
room
the cash.
with you.
Yeah, I've got the cash.
We're
you want me to show
recording
it to
from
you?
different locations, presumably because I can't get in the door of the studio because of the massive mountain of cash that Charles has there. Well,
700
let's
trillion.
not give away. Let's not give away what the catch is.
Okay.
If there is a catch, Charles.
There is no catch. No, I'm saying there's no catch.
You're
I
gonna
will
send it through
send
the
you
post.
$700 trillion in cash.
Via the post.
Via the post, yes.
Okay.
It'll probably cost about $600 trillion to send.
probably
Knowing
will.
Australia Post.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
this is happening. You've got to convince us. Podcast at chaser.com.au. The most convincing case to be the 7 millionth listener, as we did for the 6 million total, will win. You sure I can say this? $700 trillion in cash.
In cash.
Okay.
Cold, hard cash.
All right. Amazing.
But I think this sparks a wider conversation about why is the Chaser Report so successful?
Why is it so popular? Yes. Why is it generating so many hundreds of trillions of dollars in prizes?
And there's a couple of stories today that I think illustrate just how ahead of the curve listeners to this podcast are compared to the rest of the world, right?
And this is something, you ran me through these before, Charles, and I must say, a lot of the time our praise, our self-congratulation is tinged in irony, right? Irony
yes.
and healthy dose of self-disregard. But on this occasion, I think we can genuinely claim that listening to the Chaser Report every day puts you ahead of the curve
Yes,
on
definitely.
all kinds of important news stories. This is a news source. We are journalists now, Charles.
Yeah. We're basically the Kate McClymont of journalism.
Yes. We're
Yes.
Kate McClymont if Kate McClymont investigated Kate McClymont. That's the level we're operating at here, Charles.
Yeah. The first story is AUKUS. For those who listen to this podcast would know, as you predicted, Dom, AUKUS, you said AUKUS will never happen. They won't build them. And that has precisely happened overnight. The American Congress passed their defence appropriation bill for the next year, and they have cut the number of submarines that they're going to build to 1. They're going to build 1 next year, and that means that there won't be any. So what was going to happen under AUKUS was America was going to give us 3 of their spare submarines sometime in the sort of 2030s, and they'd build some new shiny ones for themselves and give us their sort of second-hand
Yeah, we'd
ones.
get the second-hand ones, and eventually they were going to build us a new one, weren't they? Eventually.
like in 2050 or something. But they've now slowed down their development of the submarines, which means we're just not going to get one. We're
this is the
definitely
thing.
not going to get one in the 2030s.
This is the thing that's so encouraging about this, because the only person, I think, in Australia, Charles, who is more dedicated to demonstrating that he was right retrospectively than we are. The only people who are the only person more willing to go and just say, "I told you so," is Malcolm Turnbull, who somehow keeps bothering to go into the media and defend his record. He was on RN Breakfast this week, making the point that the US needs double the submarines that they have now to keep up with China. They're making fewer than they were going to. The chances of us getting one, even with the best will in the world from them, which we don't have, is nil, which means Australia will not need to spend any money on the submarines. Oh, no, that's right. We paid already, didn't we? We've already given them money.
Well, I think the thing is we're paying it in instalments. I think it's $30 billion a year for 30 years, isn't it?
It's a lay-by. It's a good old Aussie lay-by.
Yeah, or maybe it's $10 billion a year for 35 years or something. But, so we have started shoveling the money. But presumably at some point, if you go and do a lay-by...
Yes.
And, you're 5 years in and you realise you're not going to get the goods.
Yep.
Are you allowed to stop by or is that not? Or maybe...
I guess it depends, Charles, whether you view the submarine deal as a lay-by or as a protection racket.
Yes.
If it's the protection racket, no, absolutely. We've just got to keep paying forever.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Turnbull's point was we should have bought the French submarines that he tried to organise and Scott Morrison fucked up by cancelling them.
Yes.
But I would think it's better for Australia and not to have to pay at all.
Well, I think we should be buying our submarines from the Chinese. It sounds like they've got tons to go around.
No, they do. And we've said this on the podcast before as well. Basically, had you listened to the podcast, you would be across this story. You would know that we'd actually signed up for the perfect submarine, a submarine that will never arrive.
Yes, that's right. Although I must say, in lay-by terms, it's like you're doing a lay-by and then the guy is using the money to build a submarine to kill you and then asks you whether you want to keep paying, but he holds on to the submarine.
Well, isn't this the same as buying a Tesla?
Not a very good.
Isn't that what it's like with the Cybertruck? Like people gave them all this money and it never turned up, and then eventually it was twice as expensive, and basically you could take it or get fucked. And I think that's exactly the same approach the Americans are taking.
It's good. It's good salesmanship.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
That's one of the amazing stories. The other story is just an update on the Chinese housing crisis. Now, long-term listeners, maybe the 7 millionth downloader would know that, because we cover this all the time, Evergrande collapsed. It went into liquidation. We predicted all this. Went bankrupt.
Called it first.
Sorry?
You called it first. It was the first place I heard anyone calling that.
Then Country Garden has also gone bust. And now there's another one today. It's called Vanta. And the really interesting thing about this one is this is the Chinese government, which a few years ago, as listeners would know, they introduced a sort of triple bottom line to property development, which means that actually you're not allowed to bail out property developers. All of a sudden, the Chinese government has changed course today and they're going to bail out the Vanta Group.
Really? Too big to fail, finally?
Well, actually, it's much smaller. It's much, much smaller than Country Garden or Evergrande. It's only, its next debt payment is only $28 billion or something. It's basically nothing.
And I mean, if they were the 7 millionth downloader, Charles, if someone from Vanta can convince us that they were the ones to get the download, we'd send them 700 trillion. That'd be far ahead.
The whole thing is maybe that's what one of our lucky listeners could do is bail out the Chinese economy.
Bail out the Chinese economy, you could with that money.
But what's interesting is, so the Chinese government has intervened to prop up this property group, partly because it's actually owned by the Shenzhen government. And so, it's sort of a house of cards. It's like too big to fail or too politically connected to fail, essentially. But the really fascinating thing is this is the first. So the crisis that China has is the exact opposite of our crisis, which is housing prices are falling rapidly, right? Like houses are just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And it's actually becoming a problem because all Chinese wealth is stored in property. So suddenly, the entire middle class is feeling poorer and poorer and poorer every day as property prices go down. And so the Chinese have started to go, okay, no, let's prop up housing prices. This is becoming a problem. And I think, and what this to me indicates more than anything is that Max Chandler Mather has got it wrong. He's got it wrong because, Max Chandler Mather, clearly a communist and
Wants to
probably
build
a
more
Chinese
houses.
spy.
Yeah.
But, and he's been all wanting downward pressure on the price of housing. And
Yes, look
suddenly
what happens.
his ruler, Xi Jinping, turns around, does a complete volte-face and goes, nah, we're going to prop up housing prices.
Yep.
So what I say to Max Chandler Mather is get with the program and start, supporting negative gearing, supporting tax breaks for property investors.
If anything, we should have double negative gearing. You shouldn't just get a tax deduction. The government should give you money.
And I think the Australian government needs to get on board and start propping up housing prices in Australia. I think the problem is, like the Chinese economy, the housing prices aren't high enough in Australia.
It's clearly the case. But also, Charles, Max Chandler Mather aside, if he'd been listening to the Chaser Report, he would know that we have already said that Australia's housing crisis is as simple as simply picking up a few of these Chinese ghost cities full of thousands and thousands of empty apartments that no one will ever live in, built by a collapsed company. Just tow them here.
Yep,
Just tow them here and moor them off Sydney Harbour, moor them off, put them in the Brisbane River, fill up the Brisbane River and put the content of these skyscrapers in them and boom, you've got all these houses. It's fine. We can do it tomorrow. Just tow the cities. I don't know quite how you detach them, but there'd be a way. You get a big truck.
I reckon Elon Musk would be up for helping out with that. That's
Yeah,
the sort of
he'd have a submarine, wouldn't he, to do it?
blue sky thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, that's right. If we had those submarines, or maybe we use some of the Chinese submarines to torpedo China and detach part of the land and bring it here.
Yes, or a tunnel. Elon Musk could build one of those tunnels he's building from the Boring
Yes,
Group and
yes.
just use the tunnel to transport the giant skyscrapers from China to Australia.
Or just commute from China each day.
Actually, that's all you
Yes.
need. You
With
just
a
need
tunnel.
a fast enough train to live in wherever it is, the outskirts of Shenzhen or something.
Yeah.
And just commute to Sydney or Melbourne. What
I
a good
reckon the
idea.
commute would be better, especially if you didn't. What if you linked it up with the Rozelle interchange, though? That would be a disaster. Be stuck in the
very
tunnel
good
the whole time.
Yeah. Just build a very fast train. Like Australia's always been on the verge of doing that. Now's the time.
Yeah, Albo could build a fast train between Canberra and Beijing.
Yeah, between Canberra and the
Or
rural
it'll
China.
be like Guangdong or something, Guangzhou.
That's what a good idea. So had you listened to the podcast daily, as you should, you would know all of these news stories. Are there any more, Charles?
Well, every news story proves our point.
Yes.
that we're great. But the other thing that I just wanted to do was we had a flurry of reviews following Dom's call out for reviews the other day.
Oh, good.
Unfortunately, people are finding that you can't leave a review on Apple Reviews if you've already left a review on Apple Reviews. You can edit your review, but you can't.
That does
you
seem
can't-
like a flaw in the system that you can't just fake more reviews.
So people have been sending me proposals for their rewrites of the reviews that they've made.
Good idea.
So, well, actually, this one isn't big. He said, now that I'm a paid-up member, I don't seem to be able to do reviews. Is that another flaw?
Or benefit, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's a benefit. But while I've got you, 5 stars, I love whichever one of you does the Lego Masters show, you're great. And the other one who does the other 100 people show or whatever the fuck that is.
The 100,
also keep
yeah,
up the
that's
good-
right.
Yeah, keep up the great work.
I mean, it is the ongoing awkwardness of this podcast, isn't it? Which of us is Andy?
Yeah, that's right. I know exactly.
It's because I feel for Andy. He's apparently I never met him. Apparently a lovely person, and even he, in an interview the other day, acknowledged that Hamish was funnier, and said, but he couldn't do it without me. And I reckon that's a proposition you never want to investigate, Andy.
What about this one? 5 stars. The Chaser is the only place to get your news if you start your day by consuming meth and cheap port. Should we?
That'd be a good prize. Would that be a more realistic prize for the 7 millionth download? Just a bottle
meth
of
and
port?
cheap port.
We can't afford meth.
Well,
What do you take us
that can
for?
be for the 8 millionth download.
Get some Chateau Tanunda and just get it aging nicely.
What about this one? 5 stars. I mean, I guess at least they aren't Koshi and that white supremacist woman on Sunrise.
Sure.
So
Where
which one are
these?
you?
Were these
Are you
emailed to
Andy?
you?
Are you Andy and I'm Hamish, or is it the other way around?
It's not clear. I think it's best to preserve Andy ambiguity. I think we should agree to a pact.
Okay. Yeah.
But we never decide who Andy is.
And, yep. And who's Craig in that equation?
They don't have a Craig. See, this is the advantage of the
Yes.
Hamish and Andy system, is that there's not a third one
Who's
who
clearly funnier.
is clearly much more successful than everyone else in the whole group. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this guy, Rick, has said he can't undo his review because he did one years ago, but he can edit it to go down to 1 star so Lani doesn't feel alone.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Well, look, what we've concluded is that the podcast
Even though
is
it's
amazing.
depressing, the world needs a laugh. That doesn't even mean. Like, even though it's depressing, the world needs a laugh. Does that imply that our
After
podcast
listening to
is-
our show,
Yeah.
depressing show. I'm
Even
not
though
sure.
the show is depressing, the world needs a laugh. I don't know.
There's
I see
nothing
the world needs a
more
laugh
depressing,
after you.
Charles, than it's either a compliment or an attempt at trolling us. And it's so
Right.
confusing that it just makes me sad. So well done, sir or madam. You've cracked
Yes.
the ultimate review.
Okay, well, so a reminder, if you'd forgotten about it, that we're giving away $700 trillion
In cash, you say?
in cash. In your emails, you might want to guess what the catch is. Not that there is a catch. There's no catch. We're
It's
giving
not
it
a
away.
Catch, it's a cash.
Yeah. I
Cold hard
think
cash.
people will be able to guess it. My son guessed it when I told him.
Your son has had years of disappointment at your promises.
Yeah.
No one's better trained to see what's coming in the fine print.
I actually offered to give him $100 trillion in pocket money, and he said no.
It's getting clearer by the moment. Gears from Road, we're part of the Iconoclast Network, and nearly at 7 million, baby.
Ooh. See you later.